Hello, my fellow chatterers and book lovers, and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious about what this is or you have got a bit lost. Welcome, everyone. I'm Chatty, this is my channel, Chatty the Mad Chatter, and I'm going to be chatting away madly about my TBR for the Spoonies Readathon and giving you some book recommendations. So if you don't know, the Spoonies Readathon was created by Emily from Novell Novels, and she has co-hosted it for the last 2 years with Kat from Brews and Reviews, and it is all about reading books featuring characters with disability, got good representation, and also highlighting authors having disability. So I have linked in the description box both Emily and Kat's channels, plus the announcement video they did for last year, so they can talk to you more in their own words about Spoonies and why it's important to them. And I will also put their previous book recommendations in the description box as well, so you can have a whole plethora of recommendations. Now, this year Emily is not running it because she is being an excellent Spoonie and she's practicing what she preaches. So she is being kind to herself, saving up her spoons and giving energy into other things such as her exciting wedding, family and health. So well done, Emily, for not feeling that you've got to do everything. That's great. But I did reach out to her and to Kat saying that Spoonies is just such a part of my reading year. I still really want to read Spoonie books and talk about the Spoonies and were they happy for me to make a bingo board of their past prompts. So I have done that. With the bingo board, there are 8 bookish prompts and one prompt, the centre square, is a self-care prompt. So that can be anything, just doing something where you're looking after, being kind to yourself, whether this is a restful thing, whether it's allowing yourself to have a more creative time, just doing something nice for you. So typically this happens throughout May, but personally I'm not just going to restrict myself to May. I'm just going to read from now and finish when I finish. If you do want to have a copy of the bingo board, it is on my community chat, so you should be able to access it there. I'm going to go through the 8 bookish prompts and I am going to let you know what I'm going to be putting on my TBR and hopefully reading over the next few weeks, months. And I'm also going to give you some recommendations for other books. All bar 2 recommendations are ones that I did not talk about in a previous Spoonie video. So I did a recommendations video a couple of years ago, so then you should have double the amount of recommendations. Just keep adding more, and if there are any that I haven't mentioned that you absolutely love, please put them in the comments. Recommend books that feature protagonists with disability, things that you think have good disability rep, or authors where you know they have a disability. That would be great. I have no idea how long this video is going to be. My previous recommendation video was 45 minutes. I would like it to be shorter, but I do put timestamps in so you can jump around. And if you do look at my old recommendations video, please use the timestamps because there is a lot in there and not all books are going to fit all readers. So feel free to jump around. All the books I mention, I will put in their story graph link, so then you can easily access trigger warnings, a synopsis, and other people's thoughts and opinions on this book. So the first prompt in the top left-hand corner is about own voice authors. So you need to read a book that is written by an author with a disability. So for this, I do have an Emily recommendation. I am going to read A Sign of Her Own by Sarah Marsh, and this is a historical adult fiction book. So Emily really loved this and highly recommended, and it's been on my list since she spoke about it. The author was inspired by her experience growing up deaf and also her family history. So this does look at a historical figure and events that happened in that time, but there is a mixture of fiction in it to kind of explore different themes. And from what I understand, this explores the invention of the telephone and the importance put on spoken word and kind of oral communication to the detriment of sign language, or sign language is invented. I'm not entirely sure. I didn't want to find out too much because I like going in knowing as little as possible, but that's the rough gist. I'm very excited. I only have one recommendation for you, just because I wanted to keep the other two in a different prompt, which is about the 5 senses. And I will tell you for why when we get there. But the other recommendation I have is a middle grade memoir that also happened to be on this year's 2025 Middle Grade Readers' Choice Awards. So if you're doing the Middle Grade Madness Challenge, this might help. So this is Whale Eyes by James Robinson. It is a memoir about seeing and being seen. So James Robinson talks about how he sees the world, like quite literally. I can't remember the exact name, but it's to do with his eyes and how the world and kind of writing and different things kind of look when he sees them. So it has lots of amazing visuals in there, which sounds amazing. I don't know exactly what they look like, but I am highly intrigued by this. But it also confronts the discomfort that able-bodied people have with disability. So I think this sounds really eye-opening. I think it's a great topic to be exploring. I really wish my library had a copy, but it's on my list. When I can get more books, that one is definitely high priority for me. So prompt number 2, we're moving along that top row and we're now in the middle. And this is looking at invisible disability. So read a book with a character who has an invisible disability. And for this prompt, I'm going to be reading the Luis Ortega Survival Club. This is a YA contemporary book. So this is a book by Sonido Reyes. And I did mention it in a previous video, but I was not aware about their newly evolved state. That is his words. So their pronouns are they or he. And he speaks about his pre-evolution name appearing on past books. So I just wanted to correct that there. I have put a link to their author website for you to go and have a look at other books. Sonido is also autistic, and this book features a character who is non-verbal autistic. So this is Ariana, and she feels a little bit ignored and unnoticed in school because she doesn't speak. And then she gets attention, but it might not necessarily be the most wanted attention. This book has quite heavy themes and topics, and it explores predatory behaviour, and there are other people that have struggled with this as well, and they all kind of come together. So there's a sense of found family being explored within this, and I'm really excited to read it. Another recommendation is another YA contemporary, and this is Every Little Piece of My Heart by Non Pratt. This features a protagonist called Sophie who has recently been diagnosed with lupus. She suffers from a lot of fatigue and experiences a lot of pain. So it's kind of about her managing her teenage life with this. Some people are aware, some people are not aware. And what this book does is it explores what happened to her best friend Freya that all of a sudden just left. And Sophie then receives a parcel from Freya. And inside it is also a parcel for someone else. And this proceeds to have a little bit of a treasure hunt where the next person is told to give this to someone else, and they start to find other people that Freya knew. And they start to question like how they all knew Freya, what they knew of Freya, and why do they feel that Freya is doing this. And there starts to be a bit of a found family element to this friendship group that didn't really know each other beforehand. And it gives me a lot of warm fuzzies reading it. I really enjoyed it. Another recommendation is a middle grade contemporary, and this is another one that featured on the 2025 Middle Grade Readers' Choice Awards. That list is giving a lot of good disability rep in there. And this is The Beat I Drum by Dusty Bowling. So this follows Connor Bradley, who has Tourette syndrome. And this follows on from another middle grade book called The Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus. And Connor is the best friend of Avon Green, who was the protagonist in that book. I think if you wanted to, you could read this as a standalone, but if you're someone that enjoys series and reading middle grade, then you could start with those and then get onto this one. Avon Green also has a disability as well. And this was inspired by the author's husband and daughters who both have tic disorders. The third prompt, we are now in the top right hand corner, is a prompt about the 5 senses. So for this, we need to read a book featuring a disability that affects one of the 5 senses. And for this, I'm reading a book that I've had for ages and still never read. And it is A Blind Guide to Stinkville by Beth Varbell. The protagonist of this book, Alice, has albinism, which affects her vision. And their family have just moved to a new town that is nicknamed Stinksville. And she wants to show her family that she can be just as capable and independent as she was in their old town. And I have a review written by a disabled reviewer. So if you want to check that out, you can do. I have gone outside the box a little bit with my recommendations for the 5 senses, because we do mainly think about being blind or being deaf or some sort of visual or hearing impairment. So I have gone differently. So that is why one of these, it is a repeat from what I've recommended before, but it's an amazing book, so I'm very happy to talk about it as much as possible. And this is Uncomfortable Labels by Laura Kate Dale. It is an adult memoir, My Life as a Gay Autistic Trans Woman. So there's a pun in Uncomfortable Labels, talking about labels in clothes, but at the same time that we label different parts of things that make us, particularly like minorities. And what I really took away from this book was that difficulty she has in balancing her trans needs and her autism needs. So the sense that I focus on through this is the sense of touch. So sometimes certain clothing feels really uncomfortable because of her autism. Like there's too much sensation, it's a sensory overload, and it doesn't feel right. But sometimes she does need to present more femme, so she wears the uncomfortable clothing. Other times she allows her autism self to wear the comfortable clothing and for her to feel more comfortable that way, but then sometimes that can affect her body dysmorphia. So it was a really, really powerful read, exploring the difficulties that she experienced in that. Another recommendation I have, and this is a little bit of a stretch, but I'm going for the sense of taste here. And for that, I am recommending a middle grade contemporary, Gut Reaction. This is by Kirby Larson and Quinn Wyatt. They are a mother and daughter team, with the daughter having Crohn's disease.
And I forgot to mention it, but this is also a middle grade Maddness challenge book, because this book came in 3rd in the 2024 Middle Grade Reader's Choice Award.
And this book's protagonist, Tess, is struggling with feelings in her gut. She loves baking. She's moved to a new place. She's making friends by cooking up delicious recipes. She's entered into a baking competition, and she starts experiencing stabbing pains. So it's her journey through getting the diagnosis, finding out what's happening, and living with that. So this is why I said it's a stretch, because it's more of kind of like an eating difficulty rather than a taste difficulty, but you taste the food when you eat it. So I'm going with that. Because she's making all these wonderful things, and then she doesn't really get to taste them because it's making her feel really uncomfortable, and she's struggling with a lot of different things. This book was such a lovely read. It was really, really supportive, looking at that difficult balance between wanting to manage things yourself, but also the importance of asking for help and not trying to push yourself too hard. And I think that's a really important message. It also has supportive family, and it has a wonderful friendship group in here as well. So 4th prompt, we are now looking at the right column and the middle row, and that is non-fiction. So for this, we need to read a book that is a non-fiction about disability. So I have a middle grade picture book called Wonderfully Wired Brains. This is by Louise Gooding. Louise has a wonderfully wired brain, and the good news is you do too. If you do and you're reading it because of that, but you might be reading it just to find out more, which is what I'm doing. So what she does in here is she kind of explores in a really child-friendly way with wonderful illustrations by Ruth Burrows about what our brains are like, talking about different brains, how different brains work, and looking at things like the emotions and all sorts of different things that we have, like adrenaline that kind of comes through. And then she goes in to kind of look at more specifics. So it's all really positive, talking about everyone's uniqueness and making sure, you know, you are not just your diagnosis. No one's a monolith. Everyone is made up of lots of different things that makes them you. The visuals are fantastic here. We've got lots of different Lego blocks kind of coming together about different things, talking about different symbols. So the neurodivergent symbol here in its very colourful infinite loop. And then it goes through lots of different things. So we've got dyslexia, dyspraxia, autism, ADHD, cerebral palsy, seizures and epilepsy, all sorts of different things in here. And it also looks at historical figures and sort of the history as well, and different people in the world, different celebrities who are also neurodivergent. So this is going to be really fun to read. I have 2 other ones that I'm also planning to read. Well, possibly at least one of them, and I haven't decided. I haven't done an exact this is definitely the book, so I'm undecided in terms of what I can get hold of. So one is Disability Visibility, which has been edited by Alice Wong, and this is a first person stories from the 21st century, and it is a collection of essays from disabled authors. And this was recommended by Tiffany from Towering TBR and has been on my list since then. She really enjoyed it and said how brilliant it was. It's in 4 different sections, so it looks at different kind of ideas around being, the daily challenges of living, becoming, following a life-affirming path, doing, different accomplishments, and connecting, methods that different disabled people have for overcoming isolation. So that one sounds really interesting, and I can access it from my library. There is an audiobook version, which is what I'm hoping to access it on. But I have another book as well that I would like to get from the library, and that is one that has been very popular recently, which is To Exist As I Am by Grace Spence Green, because this has been longlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction. And that's really great that it's being around on BookTube and everyone's really appreciating it and enjoying it. This is highly recommended by Jem from Gem of Books, who was very unimpressed that it was not shortlisted and she really raved about it and said what a brilliant book it was. So this is a memoir of a medical student that suffered an accident and then has been in a wheelchair. So it's going from being the doctor working in the hospital to being a patient in the hospital and exploring kind of that difference. So on one hand, I think it's exploring how she kind of recovers from it, the healing and sort of coming back to her and kind of who she still is, but also kind of exploring the difficulties, like having been on both sides of it, how our ableist attitude is, and society's ableist attitude, and kind of making us be more aware of it and to think more about that. And it sounds brilliant, so I do want to get hold of that one as well in some form or other. Prompt number 5, we are now in the bottom right hand corner, and this is the BIPOC or Global Majority book, and this is to read a book written by an author who is either Black, Indigenous or person of colour, or from a non-Western country. So a book I have down to read is one that I've had my eye on for a while, and this is A Time to Dance by Padma Venkataraman. This is a YA novel in verse, and it is set in India. And it follows a teenage dancer who has her leg amputated and how she continues to pursue dance after this. I have included a link from Amputee Reviewer, and it's really generally very positive response. There's just a couple of things to do with the language in one section that they didn't feel comfortable with, but apart from that, they did say how well and how well this was researched and how authentic it felt. The next book I want to talk about is set in ancient China. And this I did speak about in my previous recommendations video, but I mainly spoke about the first book in this duology, whereas I now really want to speak about the second book in the duology. And that is, on my shelf here, He Who Drowned the World. This is by Shelley Parker-Chan, and it is a historical epic with a tiny bit of magical realism. And I recently got this copy for myself because Middlegrade were doing a sale, and I'm very excited to have my own copy. And it has amazing artwork under the dust jacket. And I'm just going to show you the other side just because it's so pretty. It's the wonderful zoo. I love Zoo. So yes, this does follow the protagonist of Zoo, but I'm mainly going to be talking about this book in terms of the themes. So in this book, the disability is amputation again, but very different vibe to the previous one. There are some people that did not like the representation. I don't know if they are speaking as amputees from their own experience or if there's just people that just didn't really enjoy the book. Personally, with my interpretation, obviously being able-bodied, I can only go with my interpretation, and I haven't found any reviews focusing on the disability aspect or where a reviewer has specifically said that they are an amputee. But the way I interpret this is I think the themes that Shelley Parker-Chan explores are fantastic in this book. So this world is very misogynistic, homophobic, and of course ableist. So there is a character, there's lots of different characters in here, and they are really used to kind of contrast each other to explore the different themes. One character really has to deal with their own shame, and there is a lot of exploration of what is valued, what is worthwhile. And another character, when recovering from the trauma of amputation, manages to focus on they are still who they are, and this is just one part of them, but it doesn't define exactly who they are, and it just kind of shows a more healthy way of being, like in the face of this ableist world. And all of these things are really explored so well. There are loads of other themes, again, exploring that who is worthwhile, who is valued, what does it mean to be that person. And this is one aspect of it, and I just think it does it really well. And there's other times where the limb difference is just casually mentioned, and there's others where it's kind of more brooding on it, and this is kind of stemming from the society's ableist viewpoints. So I just think as a duology, everything that's explored in the first book continues to be fantastically explored in this second book, He Who Drowned the World. And I think when you get into here, you can really see where those themes have kind of come from and how it all kind of gets wrapped up. And I just think it's excellent. But that's my opinion. Other people might not feel the same way, and which is completely valid. I do have a video about Are You Sleeping on This Duology, where I talk about it in much more detail, which I will link if you're interested. Another recommendation I have is a middle grade sci-fi, The Night I Borrowed Time by Iqbal Hussain. The author of this book is British Pakistani, and so is the character. And at one point in the book, our protagonist Zubair goes to Pakistan. Zubair is the 7th son and has inherited the ability to time travel. We have a wonderful relationship between him and his grandma, and he uses his ability to kind of find out a little bit more about his family's past, and there are kind of consequences if things are changed, and I just think it's brilliantly done and put together. Zubair also has strabismus, so when he is tired, his eyes will point in different directions. This is quite casually mentioned by his family, like his mum reminding him to refocus, or just someone commenting on it, or him commenting on it himself. But as part of the time travel, you have to cross something, and Zubair crosses his eyes. And it's just such a warm-hearted, lovely book. I absolutely love this one. Another middle grade recommendation, this time a contemporary, is a book by Jason Reynolds, and this is Lou. It is the 4th book in the track series, or the running club series, and it features Lou. Lou has albinism, and this is kind of just mentioned in his morning routines, making sure he's covered in sun cream and kind of different things that he needs to be aware of and think about. But it's not kind of focused on more than that. So he's just a main protagonist that has a disability, and that's it. Prompt number 6, we are on the bottom row, middle column, and that is read a book that makes you happy. And for this, I have another Emily recommendation. And again, it's another book that I've had for ages and have never got around to reading. And I feel this is its time. So this is going to make me happy because it's a fantasy. This is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. And the protagonist has cerebral palsy. It's a YA fantasy and I hear such amazing things about it. Emily absolutely adores this series, and I know Olivia from Olivia's Catastrophe also really loves this series as well, so I'm very keen to find out more about it and get my teeth into it. So 2 other books that make me happy that could work for you. Obviously this prompt is very much about what you enjoy, anything that you could read that might make you happy. But I have a middle grade graphic novel memoir, When Stars Are Scattered. This is a memoir of Omar Mohammed and his time in a refugee camp, and it is also by Victoria Jameson. Omar and his brother Hassan are in a refugee camp in Kenya, and there are obviously moments in this book that are upsetting. It really just opens your eyes to kind of what life is like living in a refugee camp. But there is a real sense of community in here. Hassan, Omar's brother, is neurodivergent and non-verbal, so Omar often feels quite protective of him, but we also see Hassan's capabilities really shine through in this book. So yeah, I love the community, I love the illustrations, I love the story in here. I just think it's beautiful, so it does make me happy despite the heavy topic. A book that I haven't read but I think will make me very happy is Vanya and the Wild Hunt, which is a middle grade fantasy by Sangu Mandana. And this has a protagonist who has ADHD. I believe it explores Indian mythology, and beyond that I have no idea, so have a look at the story graph if you want to know more. I don't, because I really hope to read it at some point, but I got it at the library anyway. We'll see if I actually get around to reading it. But it is another book from the 2025 Middlegrade Reader's Choice Awards. Prompt number 7 is the bottom left corner, and this is visible disability. So we need to read a book featuring a protagonist that has a visible disability. And for that, I'm going to read another book that, again, I've had on my radar for a long time. It's a middle grade historical fiction, The War That Saved My Life by Kimberly Rebecca Bradley. The protagonist, Ada, has telepes, which was known in the time as clubfoot. And beyond that, I know nothing about it because I liked the sound of it previously. I have totally forgotten what it's about, and I want to go in knowing as little as possible so I can just really enjoy myself. This one, again, I'm going to be accessing via audiobook from the library. Another recommendation I have is a book that I read last year, and I buddy read this with Emily and Kat and Danny, otherwise known as The Coven. And this is Sing If You Can't Dance by Alexia Casal, and this was another Olivia recommendation. The protagonist, Ven, has a sudden onset condition that affects her joints. Sometimes she needs to pop them back in place. She uses a stick to help her mobility, and she has a lot of, she experiences a lot of pain that she needs to manage. So she's no longer able to dance and to take part in the dance club that she helped set up. So in order to get her credits on her school grade, she joins a choir. This, again, really explores like independence and resilience, and when you need to be kind to yourself and ask for help, and that you shouldn't have to do everything by yourself. It's got a lot of found family. It really also explores like not judging people. There's a relationship that builds in here. There is a character with visible scarring, and this really kind of encourages lots of healthy discussions about things that make us vulnerable and different ways people perceive us and how we actually are, and it's just really beautifully done. to start off with, at the beginning of the book, it threw me slightly because the fourth wall is taken down. You are directly addressed by a very spiky narrator that lays it all on the line. And this is Ven. This is how Ven is. But she kind of like goes in straight away, all guns blazing. As you read the book, like, I really got fond of her. I really appreciated her. I really loved her. But it was slightly jarring right at the beginning. So just a warning, it flows. It does flow afterwards. And as you kind of get to know her character and know how she is, that definitely makes sense for her and for the book to start that way. But yeah, just a little warning if you try this one, which I highly recommend you do because it's a fantastic book. So I now have an adult fantasy book to recommend to you, and that is The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. If you have watched quite a lot of my videos, you know I really love this series, which is the magic of the lost. And one of the characters in this sort of protagonist-antagonist character uses a stick for mobility. And again, it's just a small part of her. It's kind of casually referenced, like it never kind of just disappears. It feels very authentic. Again, I'm reading this as an able-bodied person, and I wasn't able to find any reviews that kind of commented specifically on the disability, but I think it's represented really, really well. And if you love epic fantasy, then I highly recommend The Unbroken. So my final recommendation for this prompt is a middle grade novel in verse contemporary called Please Pay Attention by Jamie Summer. She is a mum of a child with cerebral palsy, and this book features a protagonist who uses a wheelchair regularly, and they have cerebral palsy, and there is an incident in the school that really kind of throws them and kind of puts them in a bit more danger, and it really highlights that society is very ableist. This sounds really kind of beautiful and warm, but heart-wrenching and dealing with some heavy themes as well. So I've no idea what it's going to be like, but it's definitely intrigued me and it's on my list. It is also on the list of the Middle Grade Reader's Choice Awards 2025. So if you are taking part in the Middle Grade Maddness Challenge, that is 4 books that you could read from the 2025 list that all feature a disability. And the final prompt, prompt number 8, which is the left column, middle row, and that is looking at genre. So for this, you have to read a book that is not from the contemporary genre. So the book I'm going to be reading for this is a mystery book, and it's a middle grade. This is a London Eye mystery by Siobhan Dowd. So I do not know a huge amount about this book, but what I did hear really intrigues me. So it features a brother and sister, and I think Ted is the main protagonist, and he has Asperger's. So their cousin gets on the London Eye and doesn't get off. Like, the thing comes around and he's not there anymore. Not though, he doesn't want to get off because he's having so much fun. He's not there. So his cousin's gone missing, which means the brother and sister are very keen to find out what happened, and then the story. I have got a link in the description by an Asperger's reviewer who comments on the representation in this book and says that they think it's brilliantly done. I'm very excited to read it. I do enjoy a middle grade mystery. I don't read a huge amount of them, but when I am in the mood for them, I usually have a great time with them. I then have a YA sci-fi, which is Iron Widow by Ziran J. Zhao. So this book features a protagonist who's following the ancient Chinese practice of binding women's feet, is not able to walk unaided. I don't know how to talk about this book. It's been a while since I read it, but I absolutely loved it. I really loved the characters. I was very fascinated by the strong feminism in the story. It's quite aggressive. So if that's not your thing, you might not have such a good time, but I really loved it. And I treated myself to a pretty edition. So this is the Olivia edition with the very pretty edges. And finally, I have a YA dystopia. So from the Giver Quartet, the second book, Gathering Blue, features a protagonist with a disability. So the Giver Quartet, I think, all comes together in the fourth book, Sun. I've only read the first 2 so far. Really loved The Giver, really enjoyed Gathering Blue. but they're not necessarily related. So if you've loved The Giver, I'm like, oh great, didn't realise there was more. Gathering Blue is it feels very different. It's like a completely different book. So it's only later books that kind of link them together. So Gathering Blue explores a very ableist society. So do be careful when reading. And the protagonist has been saved from abandonment by her own mum because her mum refused to abandon her. And was able to convince the society that as long as she survived, she should be allowed to live and carry on. But the book starts off with her mourning her mum, and it's about how she manages to survive when her mum is no longer there. There is more to it than that, but I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But I think it explores the theme of disability really beautifully in this. Again, I'm able-bodied, so I can't really speak as to how the representation is. And I haven't, again, found a own voice reviewer to be able to give you, but I thought it was brilliantly done. And that's everything. That's all my recommendations I have for you. I am very, very excited to be reading for Spoonies again. Please let me know if you are planning on doing any Spoonies reading in May or beyond. And like I said, let me know any other recommendations you have. Or share any thoughts on the books I have mentioned. You know I love a chat. Happy reading, everyone. That makes no sense. I've written the right left corner. Yeah, waffly waffles. Whoop.